It's been a while, folks, but welcome to the Hedera HashCast. I'm your host, Warlock and Key, and today we are going to be talking to Nostradaomus of Hashgraph.name. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. So HashGraph.name is our project. Our company's called PiFi, and we are also building the Upside DAO, but I am Nostradaomus of Hashgraph.name.
That's good to know. For some people who aren't, plugged in, what is that? What does Hashgraph.name do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that a lot of people in Web3 are probably familiar with ENS at this point. And ENS, the Ethereum naming service, on its most basic level is essentially DNS routing for wallet addresses, because wallet addresses are long and hard to type in and dangerous to try to type in. But it's become something way more. And in fact, ENS itself now builds its product as a Web3 username. In sort of the same spirit, we keyed in early on something that's very important to PiFi is people owning their own data. And we sort of keyed in on, ENS's strategy on Ethereum and how what people really want out of naming services is sort of this constructed pseudonymity, this character or this outwardly facing personage that they can be when they go any particular place on the internet and in Web3 in general. And we wanted this both for our main platform, the Upside DAO, and we want this for the Hedera ecosystem in general. And so, that's why we built it. It is much like ENS in the sense that in Hashpack you can now send people money right to their .hbar name. But we want it to be more than that too. We want this to be a decentralized Web3 profile for anybody on Hedera, where nobody has your data, only you have your data. And you can express yourself as or be whatever you want to be.
I've even just the basic functionality that you're talking about, I've already been using a lot. Because I do NFTs, I send people NFTs, and sometimes I get sent random NFTs from Cap, who runs the Hot Dog Hustle project, and some of them are ugly, and I want to send them away. And I know that my boy River Trash, I know he has that same token associated. So whenever I get an ugly one that I want to go away, I just type rivertrash.hbar, baby, and it goes right to him. People listening, do the same thing. Do the same thing to him.
Send all your garbage NFTs to River Trash.
Civet, his name's River Trash. Don't send it to trash.hbar because I own that. just River Trash. Just River Trash. But yeah, I've been loving it. I bought way too many. They're addictive.
Yeah.
They're addictive, so maybe put a warning label.
We're coming up on 15,000 here pretty soon, so a lot of people have bought a lot. So yeah.
There should be some like whale data, like Warlock, this other guy. Because I'm sure it's like just people who want a mountain.
Yeah. So, I think that how many do you have?
I have well over 100.
Okay. I think that in terms of people who have over 100, I think that there's 5, maybe, something like that. And a couple of those have well over 100, like 900. Somebody has like 900.
That's not me. That's not me.
No worries. But honestly, it's not just a few people either. We have seen, we have had at this point like 7,000 unique users of the system, which is a pretty interesting metric because we know that Hedera has like 50,000 unique visitors a month. And so we, our service is attracting like a sizable chunk of monthly active Hedera users in general, which we're pretty happy about.
Yeah, I feel like that's about all the NFT community.
Yeah.
From
Yep.
figures I've seen, it seems like 5 to 7K is pretty much everybody that's interacted with the NFT community, at least right now,
Mhm.
which is a little sad. It's a little
Mhm.
sad compared to other networks, but anytime I see data, it's like around that range. Sometimes it gets a little bit more.
Yeah,
Um, we need to pump those numbers. Some more questions I have for you. Let's
absolutely.
see. Where do I start? Where do I start? Can you give me just a little baby timeline of your experience starting this project, receiving grant funding, that
Mhm.
process, and then leading up to launch?
Yeah, absolutely. So in February, we started working on the Upside DAO. We are working on SEC compliant DAO infrastructure, and we're very big on decentralization in general. And one of the things we keyed in on early is even profile data. We don't want to hold people's profile data, and so we wanted a solution for this. We looked around, and at the time, we didn't see any other naming services. So we started working on it. We now know in hindsight that there was another naming service working on it,
There was.
um, which is natural. Competition is natural in ecosystems. Um, we decided to start working on it. We've been in contact with the foundation this whole time, and in fact, we had an in-person meeting with the foundation last week in New York City, and the talks went really well. We have their full support. We haven't currently tried to get any grant funding, not because we don't want grant funding, but because the way that grants typically work with the foundation is that you can get a fast track grant if you need money to like spend the time to build something that's for the ecosystem. And we actually raised 4 million in venture capital earlier this year. We decided to just prove to the foundation that we intend to deliver value to this ecosystem and we intend to build it up. And then we'd come back and do like a retroactive public goods grant. So
Okay. Yeah, I did not know that.
yes, sir. And that sort of then we sort of got to the point of launching. Obviously, there was lots of stuff involved with the launch, but that's sort of the timeline of where we are until now. Yeah,
Okay, well, let's talk about launch then.
let's
Let's
do it.
let's 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 break through here. So, let me try to organize this in my mind. So, there was an original launch date,
Mhm.
and then you made it earlier.
Sort of, yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, explain that to me.
Absolutely. So, we have agreed from early on that, the .hbar standard itself, not necessarily any TLD, but the .hbar standard itself should be a single non-duplicated public good on Hedera. And because of that, there was another competitor in the ecosystem, and we have been working on that. Um, we decided early on that we wanted to work with our competitor to make sure that there weren't duplicated .hbar names. And so we worked with them, and we created a collaborative standard to be able to hold an immutable record of these .hbar names. Um, and when it came time to launch, something people may not know is actually we were ready to launch several weeks before, but we, in the interest of the collaborative standard that we had worked on, we were fine pushing it back a little bit to make sure that our competitor felt comfortable with their launch, which sounds kind of crazy to say in hindsight, but um, we finally got to the point where we said, hey, we're not going to wait anymore. But we did agree that we would launch at the same time. So we're giving you this heads up. Tuesday at Tuesday at 10 a.m. We're going to launch. Um, this this created an avalanche of untimely things whereby our competitor then decided that they were going to launch at 8 a.m. To our 10 a.m. And then not only were they going to launch at 8 a.m., but they were going to give early access pass holders, because they had sold early access passes 12 hours. So 8 p.m. the night before, early access pass holders would be able to mint unlimited names in that range. And we, we obviously weren't okay with that. We talked about it as a leadership team, and all of us come from 0 to 1 venture backed companies, right? So like this is the sort of grit we're used to, like competition and making tough, fast decisions. It's sort of our wheelhouse. And so we decided that we weren't okay with that, and we launched first. And it was, there was a little bit of serendipity involved, because we had soft launched on mainnet to make sure that everything was good and working correctly, which is totally normal in software deployments, right? Like doing a production launch and then doing some initial testing just to make sure everything works, at least on a very fundamental level. And some degenerate found our site and then leaked it in a Discord. And we had already been talking about maybe doing an earlier launch, because we weren't stoked about sort of the degradation of the partnership. And so all of a sudden we had sold like 1,000 names, just based on people who had figured it out and spread the word. And so we just decided we decided as a leadership team that we weren't going to bring the site down, because we were ready and had been waiting for this. And so that's sort of the story of the the planned time, the planned launch, and then how it sort of degraded into this early surprising launch that maybe caught people off guard.
Yeah, well, let me add some context as someone who was in said Discord. My experience was someone was going on the site checking what names were available,
Mm-hmm.
and then they figured out, wait a minute, I can mint these. And then everybody, it was a mad scramble,
Mm-hmm.
As it would be. What was interesting to me, and what goes into, I guess, the drama, is that I was also privy to a lot of people in your competitor's Discord being extremely upset that this was happening.
Mm-hmm.
The sentiment was, we paid for early access to get these domain names early, and now
Mm-hmm.
other people are getting these domain names early.
Yeah.
What I found interesting was very few people were like, oh, which was, I was full disclosure, I was more familiar with your competitor. I was planning to, I had an early access pass.
Mm-hmm.
I was planning to mint price.hbar as my one thing I really cared about. Who knew the addiction that would surface? But I saw, oh, the other one is open. I'll just do it there. They're shared.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem? But I found that a lot of these people that were freaking out didn't want to do that, and were like holding on to the hope that you would get shut down or something, or they're like, they didn't even think like refund, which would have been my thing. But the anger at other people getting domain names early when they were paying to get domain names early is a little funny to me, I will say.
Yeah, and I think some of that can be attributed to strategic miscalculations on our competitors' part. I mean, the .hbar standard, in some way, promising things early or anything like that. Like, if any part of your release strategy is related to you being the sole provider of .hbar, and that is not the case, then I would have suggested a reorientation to helping people align their expectations with what the case might be. I think that there was a lot of colliding strategy here, and I think it was a prisoner's dilemma type deal. And yeah, to be honest, in Web3, I wouldn't sell early access passes to stuff. But outside of that, we've bought some early access passes off of people. We want people to know that we care about everybody in the community and providing the standard. We intend in the long term to release this as a public good. We don't, we're our real platform that we want to sort of have continue to be under sort of the Pi-Fi stewardship in perpetuity is the Upside DAO. We built this because we needed it, but we believe that the community can own this, and we would like to work towards that. So yeah, I feel like I feel people's discomfort in some of those situations, and we don't love that it happened that way. So I don't know if there's anybody out there who thinks I skulk through back alleys with a trench coat or something, but we want to make everybody feel included and happy, and anything that HashGraph.name or Pi-Fi can do to help encourage that, we want to do.
Right, and the extra context is important, and I think if you're one of the people that bought the early access pass, you're in that competitor's Discord, you're really excited, you're not going to be looking at the competitor, I assume, because I don't know, brand loyalty is easy to fall into, even when it's not really much of a brand. It's a service, or supposed to be a service. So I can, you spend money on something, you feel attached to it.
Totally. And I get that. I really do. So,
but I feel like there's a lot of extra context that you didn't just, because the narrative that I was seeing was, they saw that the other people were releasing, and they're like, we're releasing earlier. And even something like you were saying that you've been ready to release. You've been holding off for them. There's not been good communication between you.
Yeah.
And as far as the connection of the .hbar domain, the shared domain, how much did they help with that collaborative effort?
0%. So and they were in on calls, but they seem to fundamentally misunderstand how Hedera even works. And so we architected and built the entire collaborative solution. So.
Okay. So you were ready to launch earlier, and you didn't. You could have launched. Did you say multiple weeks early?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
You could have launched 3 weeks early. You built the solution for the sharing of names, which is pretty important. I feel like that's pretty important.
Yeah.
And then you were going to launch on the same day. That was the plan. And when did the selling of the early access passes happen?
So I don't really know anything. Me neither. Yeah, I know that they exist. And I know that we have had people reach out to us and say, hey, I paid a lot of money for this early access pass. And they were pretty upset with us. But I don't know the history of the early access passes. And just as a note on the collaborative solution, that is the truth. That is not a blanket statement that they are not capable of building a collaborative solution. I think that there's dysfunction on the other side of the fence, and I don't know. I can't speculate as to how that dysfunction played into the breakdown of collaboration. But yeah, I just wanted to say that real quick. So,
but they didn't. For the current solution that is being used, they did not build 1% of it.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then they, because I only heard received, anything about the access pass the day before.
Hmm.
I didn't hear anything about him previous to this. Didn't know all the details. So I'm assuming because of that, this is an assumption, that they
Hmm.
must have started the early access pass stuff relatively soon before launch, because you would have heard about it earlier.
So we sort of knew about it. I think it was at least a few weeks before launch. I mean, I'm sort of a Zeus degenerate. I'm on Zeus like 400 times a day. And I know that early access passes were trading on Zeus like at least a couple weeks before. So,
Okay, I was not aware of that.
so I don't know. I don't know. Like, I've heard angles where like they were actually released for free and people were just paying money on the secondary market. That could be true. I don't know. Um, there's also more involved in the early access pass business, in the early access pass stuff, and in some of the deeper dysfunction that we actually like can't talk about publicly. That also sort of contributed to the breakdown of the collaboration and the release wars, so to speak.
All right, so launch happened. There was some drama. How did things Did you notice a shift in narrative in the following days?
I think we did. So, and we really tried to stay out of the narrative building, and I think we successfully did that to some extent. I will admit that I engaged in a little bit of narrative building as a leader, but only in ways where I just felt like the narrative had been shaped too unfairly, and that there was, I mean, like somebody called me a snake in the grass, and I was like, listen, I'm not a snake in the grass. So,
I'm a
uh,
snake outside the grass. I'm a snake on the concrete. Okay?
yes, which I guess you can make an argument for. But I'm certainly not hiding. Um, but yeah, so we so just to give sort of like a little bit of background, this is my third 0 to 1 startup. And my co-founders all come from complex financial instrument backgrounds. And so backgrounds where they actually valued startups, like that was their whole job, to value startups. So all four of us are pretty steeped in sort of what running a startup looks like. And so, we were really trying to not control the narrative, but to sort of diffuse any negative narrative by being there and available for our community, by fixing issues, and issues did occur, and sort of by just like making sure that the proof was in the pudding, that like people come to us and they can get names and those names work, and that people can trust us to do a good job. And in the long run, I hope, even if there's some people who like are, will just be upset, I hope everybody comes to know us as somebody who will do a good job and will come in every day and do the work and be better every day. If you don't like me, but you agree that that's true, like we can settle there. So,
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed a shift. I feel like a lot more information about what's been going on in the background has been out there.
mhm.
Um, which, more information is good, and the crypto community, while we're not the best at getting accurate information, we are really good at spreading information. So sometimes that can be one attribute.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'm curious though, if I could hear from you guys, how do you guys? Because obviously, from the builder perspective, we hear the really bad stuff and the really good stuff. But I would be interested in your guys' perspective on how you saw the narrative shift from roughly around launch time to now.
Deepak, you want to take this?
I can only talk about my own perspective, which is uh, that I noticed that this competitor was. I feel like what they were doing with this early access was trying to run seek, do like something very. Trying to commercialize something that's supposed to be very open, and so from the get go, I was like, yeah, like
Mhm.
all bets are off from me. Like obviously, like I'm going to support what my values are for a more open platform, and I think that's probably Web3 values in general, right? That's why we're here. And yeah, I mean, so I didn't really keep up too much with the actual drama between said chat rooms.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like, great product. Like, I got a couple of domains myself. Um,
Okay.
One question I do have for you
Mhm.
regarding the actual usage of these domain names. Do you ever think enterprises will, or could you tell us how an enterprise would use this technology?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually already built into our contracts is the ability to have subdomains. And also, we have the ability to print new TLDs. And in fact, I think some of that's on display because .cream is available. In the near future, we will be announcing a spookier TLD being available. And
Dot Crete?
Crete, yes. Cretes, reach out.
All right. How much? I know, no, we're not going to talk about that here, but four people. I'm telling you, four customers would enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's four people.
Yeah.
You
So
probably already have three of them, but
to be clear, any project working on Hedera can have their own TLD. All they have to do is reach out to us. So
okay.
we can make it is free of charge. We will not charge you for your own TLD. We will even add your project wallet as the wallet who gets the royalties. We
Oh,
are
I didn't know that. So dot Crete, dot Cretes. What do we think?
we can do it.
Well,
We can do it.
which one? We got to pick one.
I like .crete. I like no S.
Thank
So
you. All right, good. Well, decided.
yeah. Yeah, so we can make .crete. You just got to send us the image you want for the background, and then the names get superimposed over it, and you're off to the races, man. So
That is good.
yeah. Yeah, in terms of delivering for enterprises. So I think that right now we don't want to speculate too heavily on what would help enterprises, but we have two different routes. Enterprises can have their own TLD, like .lg, right? .google, like they can have that. They can also, for any name under an SLD, they can add subdomains. And so to the extent that this makes routing of information or funds or other tokenized valuables helpful, this is going to be available to everybody, and it's only going to be faster and better and have more features over the coming months.
Speaking to your previous question, in my experience, I saw a lot of angry people in the beginning. And then I started to see some Twitter posts from your account, from the Hashgraph.name account, kind of laying out the information. Now, normally, because this kind of thing is, I'm not a stranger to this, right? Web3, there's always going to be a kerfuffle.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can agree on. There's always going to be some kind of kerfuffle, even if it's not a competitor. There's going to be something. The thing that didn't make me go, okay, is this even true? Are they lying? Was I did not see a lot of breaking down of timelines, of information, of communication from the other side. And I think I wasn't the only one who noticed that there had not been much communication, or that the communication that was given, there was some given, was vague, or did not address what people were actually talking about. And I think people seeing that, not just having some more information to grab onto, but not seeing much information from the other side, started to shift the narrative to your favor, I would say. I'm trying to be political about how I'm handling this, but
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sort of what we were going for is, like there had been a breakdown in collaboration, and we believe that it was due to some dysfunction on the other side of the fence. And the truth about having dysfunction in an organization is it doesn't just show in specific contexts, right? It's going to show in public communication, it's going to show other places. And so as being experienced in the 0 to 1 realm, we decided to just put our heads down and keep fixing things, keep serving the community, and to know that, like, if there is dysfunction, if there's not, maybe we just have a competitor forever, but if there is dysfunction, like, dysfunction typically betrays itself. So
I do think, I don't know if you have any data for this, but I do think as of now, the lion's share of domains are being minted on your platform.
correct. Uh-huh.
And
So
when someone asks the question, and I see this in many Discords,
mhm,
domains, where do I mint one? Previously, the majority they would post before launching was your competitor.
mhm.
Now I very rarely see your competitor posted.
Okay, that's great. For me anyways.
Right.
I like I said, it's funny because we're also heads down and building, and so I do feel that we have this tinted lens where it's like we definitely hear the really bad stuff and the really good stuff, but like it is hard to keep track of like the real community sentiment on the issue generally or any specific ones.
I think it's gotten a lot more positive. Uh, it was quite negative, but that can also be filtered through the lens of these are the people that are freaking, you
Yeah.
know, these are the people that are freaking right now. But I do think that contributed to the overall narrative because they were freaking, and a lot of people that I know that, they're not dummies. I don't know a whole lot of dummies.
Hmm.
That's not true. But some of the people that I know that are not dummies were like, oh my gosh, look at what Hashgraph.name has done.
Yeah.
But there was no information at that point, really, unless they're following Twitter accounts. And we know that
Hmm.
even if they follow you, they don't really read your posts.
Yeah.
They don't. They don't
Yeah.
do that. But I'm thinking overall it was negative. People are like, oh my gosh, because you launched first, and that's what people could see, and they took that as evidence of wrongdoing. But at this point, when a lot of the information, the background, the important factors have come out, it's pretty dang positive. Some people still say like, oh well, they could have, or oh well, they should have. Um, but there is also a large drought of information even now on the other side. And at this point, I think that has cemented a lot of people's opinions. Whether that's fair or not, I can't say.
Yeah. And um, you know, we can't pretend to predict like how the discourse is going to be contoured going forward. But we know that, and we have some positive feedback based on how things have went, that if we put serving the community first, and we come in every day and we do the work, and we make sure that our product is better every day, um, that we can earn the trust of people over time, even maybe people who in which we had no trust in us at the beginning, right? And that's what we want to do. So for better or worse, we're going to continue to come in and try to do better every day, and bring real value to the Hedera community every day. And that's all. That's all any of us can do.
Pro tip for companies, projects, even if you're a dumb NFT project, uh, talking more, even if you don't know what you're talking about, is better than not talking. You might think, no, that's a PR nightmare, but we're not in that space. We're not in a business space. We're not in a public facing space. We're in a space with a lot of weirdo degenerates. And we like to see that you are here and you're talking, because 99% of the time, the thing that is bad is people just leaving without a word.
Hmm.
So even if you're unsure of a situation, maybe you say something wrong, maybe you say something snarky you shouldn't. This is real advice. Just say words, say some words, because it gives
Yeah.
something for people to grab onto.
Well, and I think, one of the things that, supports or kills decentralized communities in general is communication. And like the whole point is that we're not all in the same room and we're not showing up to the same office every day. And so, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You need to be out there over communicating. Nobody communicates perfectly. You're either over communicating or you're under communicating. And I would strongly advise, especially to all projects, especially projects who care about bringing value to the community, make sure you are over communicating. So,
Because even if you're a weirdo jerk, there will be some people that hear that you're a weirdo jerk and they're like, hey, all right, I can gel with that. People will, there'll always be one guy to defend you, even if you're 100% wrong, because they're like, well, I heard that he was in my state.
mm-hmm.
So got
Yeah.
to represent the boy. But yeah, I think to bring it back to our actual conversation, the fact that there was a lot of information, there was a lot of talking. I mean, you even came on that NFT late night spaces, which I think was a really smart move.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if there was like, I don't know, like 50 people listening, it's like the people that come later to listen, it reverberates, it echoes through the community.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff's really important. Being out there, being a human, letting people see you, letting people hear you. This is a big thing for NFT projects is I want to hear your voice.
Yeah.
I want to hear your voice.
Yeah. And, there's still a lot of information that we haven't shared. And some of that is because like, we don't think it's particularly professional to share all of the information about what happened. But I will say that, like, obviously, based on the Twitter spaces I was on and based on my sentiment on this, you can tell that, like, I'm not particularly neutral in the situation. And the main driving fact behind that is, and the main thing that I think sort of caused the situation to devolve is when you are delivering software, it is like doing your math homework. You can't fake doing your math homework. Maybe in other classes you can like write a paragraph and you can like get some points and it's like, oh, they
Get some
didn't
fluff
understand.
in there.
Exactly. But it's like when you deliver software, you cannot fake it. You must actually do the work. And that has been the most frustrating uh, part for our team on this side is that not only yes there was negative sentiment and there was a public narrative that wasn't always in favor of us, but really the most frustrating part is that like there was just a party involved who wouldn't do their homework. So
And then they wanted a copy
yes, they did.
right before the teacher walks in.
Yes, they
It's
are
like
currently copying.
they
So
they are currently copying. Okay, they are currently
they're currently using our homework.
the is it during and it's during class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's the worst. Because all right, if you wanted to all the people that this happened to me, if you want to copy my homework, ask me before class, dude.
Exactly.
You're procrastinating that much? Like, no, I don't want to do it when the teacher's like right there about to walk down our little aisle and you're calling me the jerk? I'm the jerk? Bro, we got periods. This is high school. We ain't
Yeah.
in elementary school. Ask me before. You knew you didn't do it. That is an
Yeah.
aside, but maybe relates.
No, I think it's not tangential at all. I think it is in the ball field that we were playing. So
So to clarify, because I wasn't aware of this situation, you
mhm.
both have been in talks with the HBAR Foundation. Your competitor has received a grant from them.
Mhm.
You have not.
Correct. Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah. So I think I said earlier, but you can get a fast track grant, which is money for people who need help building, and or you can not apply for a fast track grant, and you can just build something and then apply for a retroactive grant from the foundation. Um, and we thought that that was a more positive scenario. One, because we didn't need the money, and two, because we would rather be known as somebody who delivers value and then like applies for a grant later. We're fine doing the work and then coming back and talking to the foundation and trying to recoup some of the money we spent building it. We want to show that we provide value. So
That's really interesting. I never hear about the retroactive grant.
mhm.
I wonder how many people go that route.
I don't know.
Probably not that many.
But I can tell you the upside of it, and there's some strategy there. The upside of it is if you do a good job and you bring traction to the community, you can probably get a bigger grant. So um, that being said, I wouldn't deter anybody who wants to build and improve the community from getting a fast track grant if you need that, because that's what we really want to do is improve the community in any way we can.
Of
So
course, and if you don't have access to funding rounds and stuff, you're just some dude, like,
yeah,
please, apply. I'm sure. I know the
100%.
process is slow.
Yep.
Uh, I'm not throwing shade anywhere. It is slow. It's slow because
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that, I mean, probably because there's a lot of people that are scammers that just want free money and they're like, oh, I made a calculator app.
Yeah.
Give me $10,000. But it is
Yeah.
slow, but, have patience, people.
Yeah, and honestly, especially after meeting with them, like I'd like to give a huge shout out to the HBAR Foundation. I think that the HBAR Foundation has a ton to do. Their mandate is kind of expansive, and they uh, they try really hard to sort of thread all the needles that they need to, and it's essentially never easy being them. And so I really appreciate their continued commitment to sort of be discerning, but also like not overly involved in all of these situations, and their commitment truly to just like improving the community by just adding the right incentivizations everywhere. I generally, after going through this, I generally don't think it's easy to be the foundation. I really appreciate what they do.
Going forward in the future, I have two future questions. Number one, what are some cool features you'd like to implement with the domains that are different relatively soon?
Yeah. So what I'd really like to implement soon is sort of like a decentralized profile where you can look people up by profile. You can already store information on there. We'd like to make it a little bit easier. We'd like you to be able to upload your avatar if you want to, and create this decentralized profile based on the tokenization that only you hold. We would also like to do, in combination with that, we would like to do Web 2 based routing. That's quite easy to do, and we have received enough feedback that some people want that we want to facilitate it for the community. I don't love the idea of calling it a smart domain. It really is just like a link to a link. But like if people really want it, we want to build it. So and what I'd really like to do is when we get this decentralized profile going, I would love to work with Hashpack and I would love to work with other large community projects so that when you log in to Saucer Swap or Zeus or even in Hashback anywhere, like there can just be an embedded iframe that is your hashgraph name, your decentralized profile. And if they want to say, if Zeus wants to send you an email for some reason, like it needs to ask for permission from your hashgraph name to have your email, stuff like that. But I think that, and we'd love to have partners on this. If any large projects are interested in working on it with us, we're down with that. So, um, but that's the way I'd really like to see it used. There is, of course, an enterprise perspective. If any enterprise organizations are interested, we can easily facilitate enterprise level TLDs, SLDs, subdomains to the extent that it makes sense to them. So, LG and Google hit us up.
Honestly, all that sounds incredibly terrifying to me because it sounds like a social credit score that
Oh,
you're
you
able to calculate that stuff, just
interesting.
based off of like your because like your H bar is visible to everybody, right? Your wallet's visible to everybody. All your transactions are visible to everybody, right?
Mhm.
So So that's, that's kind of the give and take with pseudonymity. When are we going to get complete anonymity?
Yeah, and I mean that, that's a really great question. And I think that we are sort of working with pseudonymity-based solutions. I agree with you. And I think that there can be, cryptographically secure off-chain information in the future. I think there's all kinds of things that we can do. And we are actually currently in contact with a tokenized DID company. The missing component from this that would allow for the privacy that you're looking for is like a true DID, so like a decentralized identity solution. Um, we have been very careful to just provide the pseudonymity layer, and the routing layer, because the DID thing needs to be a whole project on its own to make sure that it's done right, to make sure that it covers all of the W3C standard implementation recommendations. It really is its own thing. And anybody out there building DID solutions, including from a Photochromic is who we're currently talking to, we want that as well. And what you want is possible. So
My next question regarding the future, and this is, even more immediate. How do you see, let me see, what's a smart boy way of asking this? How do you see the relationship with your competitor continuing over the next 3 to 6 months?
it's not clear to me. And I wouldn't pretend to speculate on how things will. I wouldn't. I'll tell you this. I wouldn't speculate publicly on how things might go. One, because you never really do know how things might go, and you could get a swift kick in the behind if you're not careful. Um, in terms of I think we do have market share right now. I think that we will continue to improve this product. I think the future looks bright for us. Um, is there, like, in terms of a competitor stance, do they pivot? Do they cover some other area? Do they do something? Maybe they do. I don't know. Like, there probably are tangential solutions that would allow them to do something really cool. And they aren't at a loss of engineers. They have good engineers. And in fact, I really like their lead engineer. There's something there. If they choose to compete with us directly, I don't know how that works out. We'll just have to see. So
Something to clarify, if you have an NFT, a domain NFT from them, it doesn't show the name on the NFT, correct?
yeah, correct.
They got to fix that.
Yeah, so we use a generative image service, and that's how we're doing it. It's actually, like, everything comes with its pluses and minuses, right? So like I would say, like, 3 times out of 15,000 NFTs, like using any software service, if you're familiar with it, like 3 times out of 15,000 NFTs, that service has failed, and so there is an NFT without an image, and we're going to work on fixing that. It's not like the biggest deal in the world, but, like, it's just interesting how, when they reported that, before I looked at the numbers, I was like, I wish I didn't do this. But I really do like that they're on there. And in fact, if we do a token upgrade in the future, we'd like the expiration date to also be on there, so that it's just very clear, in exchanges and anywhere else, that, like, if somehow it gets listed, even though we will provide tools to be able to discern active ones, if somehow a domain gets listed, people can just on its face see that it's not valid. So
I am going to say, to quell any fears that you shouldn't have done because there's a lot of work,
mhm,
super important. Super important. I am sure there is a lot of people that, if they looked at both, they're like,
mhm,
oh, well, that one has the name on it.
yeah,
I think that's super important. Because it's like, you wanna, if you're looking in your hashback, they're NFTs. You wanna look at them. Maybe we could add some color to the background image. If you if you need something weird, maybe I'll throw something together for you. But the name itself is so important to be able to see it. Like, oh, and you can scroll down your history, like when you added it, like, oh, got that back then, I scroll to the very, very back, oh, a.hbar. I remember that day. It was extremely chaotic. I don't even know how I got that. I was like, not the first 100.
Well, what's nice? Oh, so, go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what's nice about, so we have 12 people on our software engineering team, and our principal architect is a longtime software engineer. He's incredible. He's really great. The nice thing about having like a team with like a bunch of varied but deep experience is like we come up with problems like that. And it's like we'd really like every NFT to dynamically have the text of the name on it. And it's like the nice thing about having an experienced team is like somebody says, I know a service that can do that. Like, you want to use this. So like that's been sort of a joy of working with the team that we have, is like every niche problem we run into, like somebody's seen that before and they're like, yeah, we just like, this is a service right here, we'll use this. So
yeah, that's crazy. Super important. Personally, I think that's super important aesthetically. That to me, if you just didn't know anything else, that would be a huge differentiating factor for me. How is the relationship currently? Is it better? Is it worse?
I think mostly it doesn't exist.
Okay.
I would say here's the thing is, I think that to the credit of both sides, I would like to say, throughout this process, I think one of the things that caused rising tensions and potentially, negative sentiment on both sides in the public is that we were trying too hard to fit a square peg in a round hole, right? It was like, hey, like these are natural competitors, like like directly opposed competitors, and there is a lot of effort. And honestly, some part of that was it wasn't even the HBAR Foundation. It was us perceiving that we had to work together to make the community happy. But like, on some level, if you have two just diametrically opposed natural competitors, it's like, we want to make sure there's a collaborative data standard, but we should have left it at that. We should have said, this is the collaborative data standard. We don't need to get in any deeper talks here. Like, we agree to store information in the same way, in the same place, like, and that should be it. Like, and I despite the fact that I'm not happy about in all the ways about how things went, we learned a lot. And I think the Hedera community learned a lot about how to work together and how to solve things as a community, and maybe not when to work together. So, because sometimes that's okay too.
Well, I think that is a great note to end on. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I know we kind of threw this at you really fast. Yeah. Normally I have a script where I like read a bunch of stuff. I don't have that. So I am just going to say maybe 5 words, and then we're going to wave at the camera, if that's okay with you.
Let's do it.
It's more than 5 words, people. Thank you for building a consensus in the Hedera community. Thank you to our patrons: ABFT, FTW, Charlie Go, Pib Chibler, and DJ.